Hello, Curious Creatives out there. This is Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative, coming to you with yet another episode of the podcast where we talk about results-based video strategy. Today, we are lucky enough to have with us Matt Fuller, coming to us live from LA. I guess by the time you hear this, it won't be live anymore, but I like to say that because isn't that fun? Matt, it's great to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me here on The Curious Creative. I'm thrilled to be with you and excited to chat.
You're listening to The Curious Creative with your host and video expert, Mike Kepka.
Matt, before we get started a little bit, tell me a little bit about your expertise, where you come from, and what you're actually doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so like you said, Mike, I come from the production world. I studied film in college and moved across the country to cut my teeth in the Hollywood system here in Los Angeles, where I spent the first 10 years of my career making big budget films, working on, developing projects for studios, ultimately shepherding them through production and into the world. And after about a decade of that, I missed being very hands-on with creating projects. As you can imagine, in a big system like Hollywood, there's a lot of players involved, and I really wanted to get my hands dirty again. So I kind of left the system or stepped outside of it to make an independent feature documentary called Auxism in Love, which you can see me behind me there. Fantastic experience. Premiered the movie at the Tribeca Film Festival, sold it to Netflix, toured the world with the movie. And it was about that time where people started asking me to make projects for their businesses and more commercial endeavors. So I thought, gosh, it makes a whole lot of sense to not have a Gmail address anymore. I should put a company into this. And the Inside Picture Company was born. So we've been in business for 12 years now, and probably a lot like you, Mike, I spent the first chapter of that really working hard to make beautiful creative for businesses and individuals who wanted to pursue things and grow things a little bit.
Living the dream, though, you were working on the big Hollywood sets, and that didn't do it for you. So how that shit into the last 12 years? What actually what's the bread and butter been for that period?
Yeah, so the bread and butter has been working with small to medium-sized businesses to create content that connects them with their customers, right? I've always seen motion pictures as kind of an empathy machine. And I think the more empathy companies are able to imbue into their content, the quicker they're going to connect with customers, which is kind of the whole idea, right? That's why businesses, whether they're big or small, are making video content. They recognize how powerful it is, but that seems to be where the sweet spot is. So we found ourselves playing largely in two verticals, really. Home building, which those unfamiliar with is like production home building, master plan communities, the companies that build these all across the country, and then healthcare. So big healthcare enterprises, smaller clinics, physician initiatives. Those are the places that we spend a lot of our time these days.
So I'm guessing things didn't go exactly the way we were all hoping it to go, right? I fell prey to what happened after COVID, a couple years after COVID. I wasn't marketing at all. I was hitting one-off projects, people I knew, people I reached out to. I would do something for them and then cross my fingers hoping they would come back. And you know what? They didn't. And then when we took a dive after COVID, it just got worse. So I needed to figure out how to do something different. How do we keep this field going so that we don't actually have to have a day job? I worked for the man for 20 plus years at a newspaper in San Francisco, and being self-employed, the downsides are way outweighed by the upsides. So I need to figure this out.
Yeah, similar situation. I think, right, clients weren't coming back, but I felt more importantly, I couldn't quite clearly articulate why they should invest in creating video, right? Ultimately, a business owner was going to do that because they wanted some sort of result. And I had to figure out a way to articulate that and be able to deliver results with the product we were creating. And so I went on a hunt for answers to that. And actually, that's how our paths crossed, right, Mike? I mean, we're both
Sure.
looking for that. We stumbled into a similar minefield of answers.
And yeah, that's where I think we're going to talk about the mastermind class that we've been both hanging out in when we can, once or twice a week, to sort of put our heads together and figure out how to do something different. And what we have been working on is strategy. This is where I talk about, it's also been sort of the catalyst for this podcast. It's results-based video strategy. We are still making video content. Nothing has changed there from my side of the story. But we are now looking at what the clients have in their wheelhouse and identifying where they're falling short and how we can help. And then basically set up, we find their audience and then set a specific strategy, a different kind of set of videos. It essentially is a funnel. We've all talked about funnels over the years on different various social media platforms. But we are looking for a broad audience, honing that down to a smaller audience, and then essentially at the end of the day, it is a super targeted audience that is going to show results for our clients. Does that make sense to you, Matt? Is that what you're working on right now?
It makes sense to me, and it made a lot of sense intuitively when we were introduced to these concepts, right? Because that's how I, as a consumer, am introduced to new ideas or solutions or things that make my life better, right? I become aware of a problem that I either did or didn't know I had, and then I become aware of a solution, right? What is the solution to this problem that I've really now emotionally engaged with? So once I become aware of that solution, who's the person or the entity who can help me solve that problem? And when we distill that down into this sort of funnel that we talk about, right? You and I in our mastermind, we call this ACDC content, right? Awareness, consideration, decision stage content. When you're moving someone through that sort of funnel and bringing them down to a decision point, it's remarkably effective. It's this really potent way to design content. And you're right, we're still making video at the end of the day. We're still creating content in our clients' voices, but it's helping this scaffolding and this structure helps it be effective. Instead of the old days where we would just throw something up on YouTube and like cross our fingers that people would find it and just fall in love.
Right.
We're curating a journey for them that's ultimately much more effective.
I find when I'm on set now looking for, I'm always listening to sound bites when I'm feeding questions to people on the other side of the camera. And now I get excited because I know that's perfect for that. That's perfect for that. And it turns out that I'm sort of, a minute ago I talked about the wonders of running your own business, but now I'm more in charge now than ever before. And I'm able to tell the clients why this is going to work. And then we back that up with projections and data and actual numbers, which is really the super exciting part. That's where the data team that I like to call them comes in. They do the stuff that they're really good about, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But today I wanted to talk maybe just a little bit about that funnel. Let's talk about ACDC, awareness, consideration, decision. Matt, for the people who've never heard of this, what is the top of the funnel? What is awareness content?
I like to describe that to clients that I'm bringing this into is you're helping people understand the problem that you ultimately solve, right? In that stage of the funnel, it's very much about your expertise in understanding this problem. There's no sense of selling. This isn't a commercial for what you do. It's helping demonstrate expertise, right? Really? And when we think about it that way, it can also become a lot more fun. It feels less like we're making commercials, please buy this stuff. And it allows us to talk about things that we really know deeply and understand that are helping the world. So that to me is like the most fun part of the funnel, right? Because it can be broad, it can speak to problems, and most of our clients that we put on camera are really expert in those problems that they solve, so they can speak about it very authentically.
Right. I mean, there's nothing worse than like when I first got started, that was what I was worried. Oh man, I'm doing campaigns that are likely to show up on social media, and it is a splashy typeface, and it's yes, please buy this, click below. I'm the social media influencer. And now I am pretty far removed for that. There is still sort of a place for that, but that's the end stage content. But the beginning stage content, we're just trying to create interesting stuff about the client or the services that they offer or the niche that we're working within. Me, for instance, I'm working with a lot of unions. I also work with some solar companies, and there are universal themes that now I'm looking to talk about just to get people engaged and interested, that they're already interested in this anyway. So if we show them a video on any level of platforms, and with the union stuff, it doesn't always end up on social, but we're getting that out on newsletters. YouTube channels are huge, and we're actually driving lots of traffic. That's where those numbers start to get exciting. We're putting money behind it, yes, but we're showing the clients that who used to think that organic stuff just happens, right? There are instances of viral videos. Yes, we know that still is the case, but there is proven numbers and data behind pushing a certain amount of money behind it. So we get a constant set of traffic. And here's where the funnel thing comes, right? So let's say with our awareness stage content, I put this in my pitch text. I imagine you do the very same thing. You set out this awareness stuff, and for really not that much amount of money, right? We might allocate, half of our budget, honestly, but half of our budget goes to, say, 200,000 people. 200,000 people that are getting to see your 30 to 90 second video that said something about whatever your niche is, right? Out of those 200,000 people, we might narrow that down to 10 or 15,000 people who actually spend any amount of time with that. That's still 10,000 people, right? Of those 10,000 people, we send them the next layer of content, which we call the consideration stage. And it's another chance for those people to engage. We all know that when we click on a roofing contractor ad, for instance, I did this last week, and I have been hit over and over with different roofing contractors. We're sort of talking about the same thing. I think I'm working a niche that doesn't have as many competitors, so hopefully it's not as over the head as that sort of stuff. But once we have them, we sort of bring them more. Once we bring them more and they engage with that, we can bring them even more. And after our potential clients or conversions have seen this a couple of times, they're much more likely to say, I think that's going to solve the problem that I had, right? Tell me about consideration stage. That's the second stage. After awareness, we've brought in a mass showing of something interesting. Now we've honed that down a little bit more. What is consideration stage from your standpoint, Matt?
Well, the way I like to think about that is that there's a kindness to consideration stage content in my point of view, right? We've exposed a huge number of people to a problem, and we are able to develop metrics about which people are responding to that problem. So we know they've got a problem, and in consideration stage, we're introducing them to some solutions, right? So that's really what's happening there. We're educating people about, here's the problem, let's offer you what a solution could look like. Again, it's not a hard driving sales situation. It's simply introducing people to concepts that they otherwise weren't aware of, but we know that will be valuable to them. I like to appreciate the ethics of this whole thing, right? It's like, we're not just slamming everyone with hard sell, buy now stuff. We know that you care about this because you watched most of this video. So here's an idea for you to take it to the next step. So that's loosely what the consideration stage is in this funnel we've been talking about.
Right. I like to think of the awareness stage potentially lets people know that there are problems. And by their own account, they see that video and go, well, I fit that bill. I think I might have that problem, right? And then the consideration stage, now that they're aware of this problem, they're hungry for the next layer. Is there a solution for my problem? And we're, as you said, not going to hit them over the head. I think there's nothing worse than doing that right out of the box. And I think that's where I wanted to say a lot of people who are doing this, the opposite of a funnel, think that the first thing we should do is hit them over the head. Hey, buy this. We're the answer to all your problems. But they didn't know they had a problem yet, Matt. That's where the first couple of stages allow them to sort of ease into this idea that we are actually offering something that's going to help them, that is going to not only something that they can pay to solve their problems, but something that will likely pay for itself or add more value to their overall business, right? And then consideration stage. I think this is where we need to be careful to describe it as not the over-the-top sales stuff, but at this point, we have gotten the interest of the audience, right? And at this point, they're kind of just want to know how to solve the problem, right? And you can introduce your client's services to just that, right? What are you doing? How are you doing that?
Decision stage content. How are we rolling that out?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where the more traditional video assets play a role, right? Because as you said, we've got this audience that's primed with awareness of a problem, awareness now of a solution to that problem, and now we're offering them in a very direct way a way to take advantage of what is necessary to have that solution become a part of their life. So I feel there's very little space for that really like infomercial level hard selling stuff. But the decision stage is where we're showing brand films. We're talking about who these clients are. It's the about us stuff. It's really the more traditional video assets that are there to explain how we can take next steps, who we are, what the next steps are, and how you can take advantage of them. How about you, Mike? Is that a similar structure to what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that here's one thing that I have found, especially with this client I'm working on right now. I can't tell you who they are yet. I'm still proving data for them, and I don't want to spill the beans, but I think they came to me and said, hey, we have this new service. we want to throw some marketing money behind it. We know, and actually the client I'm working with has a degree in marketing. So she knows marketing. But what she doesn't know is video and how to turn those concepts into actual conversions, or they have a sales team. So people to get on the phone or the email and say, hey, I think we're the solution for you. So what I needed to tell them was that we're creating all this content essentially so you don't have to. We're setting up the campaign. We're coming up with the different kinds of content that we think your audience is going to be interested in, sending them down that funnel. And then we're also, this is the important part, setting up landing pages, a place where if somebody wants to convert, that's where the call to action is, right? And then they go there. Typically, they'll see a video sales letter, right? The VSL. This is where people actually click on the link at the end of the ad and say, where am I going? What am I getting? And what I'm going to do for this particular client is we're going to have a video on their landing page that's anywhere from 2 to 6 minutes long. And they're really going to get all stages of that content at that point. They're going to be introduced to what the problems may be. They're going to be introduced to the interesting content that this service is providing and why it fixes all these pain points that their audience is going to need. And hopefully at the end of that, all they're asked to do is to click through and put their information down so that a professional marketing salesperson can reach out to them and say, we have the answer to your problems, right? The content that we're going to be putting together shows how it is going to pay for itself, that the value of this service way outweighs any of the initial costs, which is really exciting, which is also sort of, Matt, I know you look at the numbers too, exactly what we're doing. We show a projection of the content strategy that we're doing, which actually has projected ROI and actual numbers, right? Everybody has a different KPI. Everybody's looking for a different answer to what return is for them, but we're showing them how that is going to come back to them. And essentially our service becomes more valuable than the cost of actually paying us to do it, right? Which is so exciting. That's where we're moving from one-off to retainer-based, or I really can't work with you enough because you're bringing in more value than we initially thought, which is great.
Right. And that's a win-win, right? That is what the clients need, but that's also what just feels great as a service provider to be able to clearly articulate value month over month over month and grow with them, right? A lot of times, I don't know how your relationships have gone, but we've gotten 3-6 months into performing this kind of content, and the clients are so happy with it. They want to scale up and do more because the more they're putting into this funnel, right, the more ad spend typically there is, the more people will see it, the more people end up at the bottom of that funnel. And so it's been a really productive thing both for them and for us.
I think the exciting thing for me, and it's been literally a year and a half that we have sat around on an actual Zoom channel talking about how we're going to do this. And when I first started this, very confident in who I am as a production person, very confident in my skills as a former journalist, telling authentic stories, creating authentic content. But when it comes to talking about numbers and getting returns and sitting at a table with creatives or the marketing people and trying to justify your value, scared to death. And now I feel like I could talk about it all day long. In fact, I get really excited when I think about the potential, right? Hearing this stuff, and I just can't get enough people in front of me, honestly. And it is world game changing. I wanted to talk a little bit about your website. You have some guarantees on there or something. I was just wondering if you could sort of talk about that new approach, because that seems to be the opposite of, hey, we do pretty pictures, right? Hey, we do stellar video that is going to be on, I don't know, a Super Bowl commercial or something. There's a place for that, but you come across as a really smart business person. Can you just give me some of the background on your thinking there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're referring to is a new offer we rolled out just a couple months ago for our home building clients. So those unfamiliar, home building, new home building is much like a retail environment. They want people to come into a showroom where they have model homes and ultimately buy a home through that process. Getting people in the door is the trick. And we know that video is an incredibly powerful way to do that. So what we came up was an offer for people to get a certain number of leads based on a certain amount of commitment to us every month. So in the first 90 days, we guarantee you 15 new appointments after the end of that first 90 days, right? So people walking in to your showroom, to your model homes, very clear that they are there to purchase a home, right? And the reason we developed that was because, again, in this particular vertical that we play in, we saw a lot of people just blowing money on video that wasn't performing. And at the end of the day, home builders want people to buy their homes. And so if we could guarantee that, we felt like that was a great way to start a relationship. And it's been incredibly productive for us, right? If we can show up and say, we're not only going to make those pretty pictures for you, but those pretty pictures are going to deliver this result to you every month, month over month, well, then it's a win-win. And so it's been really wonderful for us to step into relationships that way with that kind of very clear, articulated return.
Right. Aside from, for my business, aside from bringing in what I still hope to be more predictable revenue, there is nothing more soul crushing than thinking you put your heart into something amazing with all this potential, and then you come back to them 3-6 months later. What'd you guys do with that? I don't know. We made a post on Facebook and it didn't go anywhere. So again, we're offering things that show more than just a finished edit, right? I think in some ways it's kind of just begun once we have that edit. That's where we can really start playing with getting that in front of the right people. The other thing I've really, what I have been explaining how we start creating content for our clients is I'll say, we're going to have a 2 or 3 day shoot. Sometimes that's wrapped around an event. Sometimes that's wrapped around a particular salesperson that's coming in, a place where we can shoot a lot of content, right? And that used to be in the old day for me, that was shoot a lot of content so we could make a 5-minute video so we could do nothing with it. Now I'm shooting all this content so that we can literally turn that into 9 to 30 little clips that are going to do, I guarantee you, a lot more work than what that one video did. There's still a place for that one video, and that's the VSL that we talked about, getting that on their landing page or some sort of part of it. But there are so many ways we can sort of take this and clip it into different avenues. It's super exciting. Matt, I know you got to go. You're on your way to the next big thing. It's been a great conversation. I forgot to mention when I asked you to be on the podcast that I want all of my guests to leave us with one golden nugget. Can you give our audience out there some form of advice?
Sure. Yeah. You know, this what jumps to mind is is a nugget that I shared with a group I spoke to recently at a conference. It was a conference for a client of mine. We were shooting some content there, and I give a few minutes about how to be comfortable on camera. Right. That's something, even when we're very particular about the kind of content we're creating, we're often putting people who are not professionals at being on camera in front of the camera. And I felt like one of the things that resonated most was that when you step in front of the camera, it's important to remember that you're not speaking to the whole internet. You're speaking to one person. And the more clear about who that one person is and why they need to hear what you have to say, the more authentic and effective your content is going to be. So if I had to distill that down, it's I want you to find your one person who needs to hear what you have to say and speak to them.
Wonderful. Matt Fuller, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being on the show. People out there listening, if you run a production company and you want to know more about the mastermind we're talking about, I can point you in that direction. Shoot me an email. You can find me at kepkahouse.com. We also have lots of other things to share with potential clients. I'd love to talk to anybody out there. I'm sure Matt does as well. Home builders, look out. Here's Matt. He's in LA. Curious creatives out there, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. Thank you.